Welcome back to Moon Talks with Dad. Grab a seat. For the past million years, the human brain hasn't changed its hardware. But today, that ancient, unevolved neurology is being subjected to the attention economy, a relentless assault of notifications, expectations, and digital noise that it was never built to handle. They experience profound emptiness, or out of nowhere, feel the overwhelming urge to drop their entire lives and travel the world just to heal. We like to believe we are rational beings in total control of our actions, yet these sudden, irrational outbursts reveal a completely different reality. We are often being puppeted by unseen forces operating right beneath our own awareness. When the modern world exhausts our mental bandwidth, we lose our adult ability to filter our own internal reactions. This allows old, unprocessed emotions to bubble up from the subconscious, a fractured psychological entity known as the inner child. This diagram maps the three psychological states forming the inner child. First, the natural inner child is your capacity for pure joy and uninhibited creativity, which we suppress to survive the competitive adult arena. Next, the immature inner child represents parts of our mind that stalled in emotional development because we lacked early autonomy. As an adult, this fragment manifests as an intense need to live entirely to please others. It creates a person who relies heavily on external validation because they never developed a core sense of independent identity. While the natural and immature states certainly create confusion and friction in our lives, they are completely overshadowed by a third highly volatile component. That component is the wounded inner child. And it is the primary engine behind our most severe adult emotional crises. It is forged during moments of severe childhood distress, experiences of deep fear, sudden abandonment, or harsh judgment. Because a young, developing brain simply lacks the capacity to process that level of trauma, the emotional pain gets trapped. To survive the moment, the child's mind employs a brilliant but dangerous defense mechanism called dissociation. It takes the unbearable pain, hides it away, and locks it into a dormant psychological file deep in the subconscious. The problem is, that file never gets deleted. Years later, ordinary adult stress or a feeling of rejection unearths those dormant files. When that happens, the wounded inner child wakes up in a panic and violently seizes control of our behavior. You can spot the difference by how we pursue basic human needs. A healthy adult mind seeks love and validation calmly, with patience. The wounded inner child demands them instantly, throwing internal, invisible tantrums if those needs aren't met on the spot. This explains why we so often sabotage our own careers and relationships. We think we're making logical decisions, but we are unknowingly letting a frightened, traumatized child operate the controls of our lives. Reclaiming control starts with a difficult realization. The inner child cannot be suppressed or destroyed. It requires conscious acknowledgement and an open invitation back into the light. This requires a practice that mirrors a concept you might know from the movie Avatar, the ICU protocol. It is the active, deliberate practice of recognizing an entity's true presence without judging it. This diagram illustrates how the protocol works in the mind. The goal is pulling your sense of self away from the negative emotion. You train your brain to realize, I am not the anger. I am the camera observing the anger. By simply sitting with that uncomfortable feeling, you stop fighting the wounded inner child. And without that resistance, the trauma is stripped of its destructive power over your actions. Maintaining this mental separation requires architectural maintenance. You have to build an inner temple through a dedicated daily ritual of mindfulness. The physical practice is remarkably simple. It means dedicating just a few minutes every morning to sit quietly, breathe, and consciously clear your mental space before you let the outside world in. Keeping a clean mental temple prevents those old, dormant files from piling up. It allows the pure, highly capable, and authentic version of who you are to step forward and handle the daily friction of life. Authentic psychological healing demands the daily work of sitting quietly with the fragments of your past until they are finally given the space they need to heal. Thanks for joining me in the room today on Moon Talks with Dad. I'll see you in the next one.